We are just 3.5 months away from the launch of Baldur's Gate 3, and at this point in time, I'd say we're past the point of where we're asking for major changes to the game. I mean, you still can, but realistically, at this stage of development, nothing major would likely be changed without a game delay. And taking into account that it seems like the vast majority of early access players are satisfied with BG3's foundational systems and overall direction, especially after Larian added a more proper reaction system, I doubt anything too crazy would or could be changed or added from here on out. Now, even if Larian does have some major foundational changes coming, at this point it's already been implemented behind the scenes, and Larian is just intentionally holding back on showing us these changes in early access. So asking for things such as a true day-night cycle, real-time with pause combat, or maybe you want a party size of 6, all these types of changes to the game are fine to want, but they're very foundational systems and mechanics, and therefore probably kind of pointless to ask for when talking about version 1.0 of the game. So in today's video, we're going to talk about some quality of life improvements that BG3 could benefit from, as these types of improvements I would say are still reasonable asks. I should preface here though that what we can currently see in early access is not version 1.0, so many of these QOL improvements and changes could already be on the way. The first QOL improvement that I'd like to bring up has to deal with keys that you find in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and hit tab and then expand my party's inventory here. And as you can see, there are a ton of keys in my inventory. I did already beat early access with this particular group, but I brought them back more towards the starting area to avoid some spoilers. Now, as you can see, there's just keys everywhere. It's really confusing, and even when you actually sort by type, it still doesn't necessarily group the keys together. As you can see right here, ribs are in between 2 of the keys. I've already sorted this by type as well, and you got books and everything in between, you know, the 7 or 8 keys that are currently in tab's inventory. So the first thing that I'd be asking for would be a special key pouch, or maybe a key ring would be more appropriate here, and have all of the keys automatically go into that pouch or ring. Now, I do like inventory management to a certain degree, but I think with keys in particular, it's more of a nuisance having to manage them. You can, of course, you know, grab a general pouch in the game and open it up and drag all of your keys in there. But like I said, with keys, just having them automatically sent to a key ring or a key pouch, I think would go a long ways in terms of making the inventory a little bit easier to look at and not really creating a hassle for the players. Now, also on top of that, after you use a key, there's no indicator that you've used the key. So I have all of these keys, and I think I've used most of them all, but I'm not entirely sure, and some of them aren't really labeled that well. I mean, this one says tea house, but still, like, it'd be nice if we could tell when we used a key. Perhaps a certain icon would pop up, or maybe the key would gray out. And in the case of a key that actually can't be used again, or you have no need for it, I would prefer that the key is automatically just discarded from your inventory. I guess you can sell it for a little bit of gold, and if Larian wants to keep it that way, just give us an indicator that we've used the key and we know that it doesn't really have any more uses in the game. On a similar topic, I would also like the ability to name some of the pouches in my inventory and some of the general bags. That pouch that I showed a little bit earlier, it would be nice to be able to just right click this and then label it as whatever I want it to be to help my own personal inventory management and organization. While with the keys, I think that should be its special own pouch. Like, you should have a special key ring that's labeled the key ring and the keys automatically go there. There's also these storage chests in the camp. I'm trying to avoid showing everything off in my camp right now. And you can see I have a traveler's chest right here. And then I think, yeah, there's 3 traveler's chests. I would also like to be able to label these chests as well, so I can organize things in a much better manner at my camp and in my inventory alike. Now onto the topic of recruitable companion inventories, because you're going to be swapping some of these companions in and out throughout Act 1 and gathering different loot and items on each of these characters. And right now I have 3 custom characters, and Gal is my 4th party member who's a recruitable companion. If I wanted to check out Will's inventory, or maybe take something from Lazelle, because I was playing with her earlier, I would actually have to go over to Gal, initiate dialogue, ask him to leave my group, run over to Lazelle, initiate dialogue, ask her to join my group, go into her inventory, grab the items that I want, dismiss her in dialogue, run back over to Gal, and then ask him to rejoin me. So that's just kind of a hassle, and it takes a painstakingly long amount of time to do something that should be really simple. So I think with recruitable companions, you should be able to maybe just right click on them, or there's a different menu and you can access all of their inventories. Now after Act 1, your companion choices, from what we've been told in the past, you're probably gonna have to make some decisions in terms of what companions you want with you before we get into Act 2, so that won't really be as much of a problem. But in Act 1, I'd love to be able to access all their inventories without having to go through all of this somewhat pointless dialogue. And the next QOL suggestion deals with inventory once again. A lot of these are inventory related. We go into my character's inventory right here. There's no way to select multiple items. Now you can actually shift click on items to add them to wares to then sell those to vendors, and when you do this you can't actually equip those items, and this is nice to have the option. A lot of people aren't aware that you can shift click on them, but there's no way to just generally select multiple items at one time. So like if I wanted to grab both of these axes and maybe, you know, send it to a different character to reduce my encumbrance levels on a particular character, or if I just wanted to, you know, grab a bunch of items at one time, like go through here and grab all the potions or potions of speed and then also a helmet and send it to another party member, you have to do this individually with each item. You either have to right click and send to somebody, or actually open up the party inventory and drag and, you know, give it to another party member. Being able to select multiple items at one time would be a lifesaver in terms of inventory. Yeah. And this brings us to the topic of discussion on food and drinks, and I have a few quality of life improvements to suggest here. So as of right now, I'd say like 90% of the time, anytime you pick up any food or drinks in the game, you're sending it back to your storage chest at your camp to then use it for a long rest to replenish your health and your spell slots, etc. There's not a ton of uses for food and drink outside of using it for a long rest, and therefore there's really no sense in holding it in your inventory for the most part. Now right now, if you were to go into a container and there's food or drinks in that container, you can simply right click on the food or the drink and send it right to your storage chest. But if you pick up food on the ground, and in some areas there's a ton of food scattered on the ground, you actually can't right click and send it to camp. You have to pick up that item and then go into your inventory and individually select it and send it to your camp, which is an extra unnecessary step that I would say. And also in your inventory, I would like there to be an option to where you could right click on one food item and send all food to camp if you so choose. Now some people might be saying, why not just have all the food and drink that you pick up go directly to your storage chest back at your camp to be used for a long rest? And the reason why I don't necessarily advocate for that yet is because there are some uses for food and drink outside of a long rest, and if it automatically went to camp, then it would be kind of a hassle getting it back in your inventory if you wanted to use it when you weren't at your camp. For example, we can simply drink wine right now, and Shadowheart, or whoever I'm picking it up here, they will get drunk and have a negative status effect. Now that's more of an RP type thing, I guess you could say. I can't even find the wine right now. The food also doesn't really organize that well when you organize it by type, which is a problem. There's the wine right there. Let's go ahead and drink. And now my Tavli character right here gets a little loopy and has a negative status effect. You can also throw things at enemies, and I think Larian might even possibly put in like some food combination cooking system. And if they have a lot more uses for food on the game's official release, we don't want it automatically getting sent to camp because we want access to some of it if we want to, but having that option to send all the food to camp if you want to would certainly be nice. Now I'm back at camp, and if I wanted to take a long rest, this is one of the most highly requested quality of life improvements that I've noticed on the forums and on the discords and just from the general community discussion. When you click on a bedroll to take a long rest, your camp supplies will pop up. But these are only the camp supplies that are on your individual character. And since we're kind of incentivized to send things to our storage chest and not really hold on to food at this moment in time, this can be a bit of a hassle because then I'd have to run my character all the way over to the storage chest over here. I mean, you can move the storage chest closer, but this is still just kind of like an unnecessary step that you have to do. I'd have to go in here and then do some quick math in my head to try to make it equate to 40 when I don't really have access to a screen that's showing me what I currently have. And if I over grab food, then I'm gonna, long rest and appear in the world with too much food, then have to right click on that food to send it back to camp to free up inventory space. If I under grab food, then I run over to the bed right here and I can't actually take a long rest, and I have to come back to the storage chest and grab some more food, so it equates to 40. So I think a lot of people are on board with being able to click on a bedroll and then having all of the food in your camp show up here, so you don't have to always retrieve it from the storage chest. And I don't really see anything wrong with adding that to the game. Also, while I'm here, I think it would also be really cool to be able to have like special storage chests specifically for food and drink. You know, maybe it looks a little bit different, and of course it's labeled differently. I think that would be great for camp organization. Moving on to one of my personal biggest requests for quality of life improvements, and this deals with the chain link system. I first want to say that personally I feel like it works better in DOS 2 than it does in BG3. Things are smoother and easier to connect together in Divinity Original Sin 2, and at the very least I want that feeling in BG3. Now, this next suggestion is not me advocating for the chain link system to go away. I think it should stay. It seems like a lot of people are okay with it, and it serves its purpose. What I am advocating for is a way to use the chain link system, but not necessarily directly using it. And this can be done through shortcut keys. For example, if I wanted to take Shadowheart right here and move her up without the rest of the party following me, I'd have to drag my cursor to the left side of the screen, grab her portrait, unchain her, let go, and then it kind of moves her portrait all the way down, which is a little bit confusing to the eye. And in some cases, if you don't have her selected, you then also have to click on the portrait after you do that. Otherwise, you end up moving the party instead of her. And this is just kind of a little bit too much for selecting one party member. This should be really quick and simple. And I think maybe offering something such as allowing us to shift click on a character, which would unchain them from the group and also select them, would be much easier and quicker. So if I wanted to select, you know, Tavo right here, my level 4 sorcerer, I could just shift click on his portrait or his character. It'd be nice to be able to click on characters. That would auto unchain him, and then I can just move right up. Don't have to kind of look at things or figure things out, or, you know, have the wrong character moving and so on. And this could also work for selecting multiple party members. So if I wanted Shadowheart and Tavioso right here to be chained together, maybe I hold down shift, I click on Shadow on her character or her portrait, and then also click on Tavioso, and it groups them together and doesn't touch the other party members. This would just be so easy and quick, and for something as important as, you know, moving characters around in the world, I don't think there should be like a lot of steps involved in this. The chain link system just has too many steps, and you can make mistakes and so on. So I'm not advocating for like the rectangle pull anymore like you see in a lot of other CRPGs. I wouldn't mind it myself, but I can understand not wanting to have, you know, the rectangle drag thing in your game. It's kind of ugly and it's kind of old school, but another way to alter the chain system without having to drag things around would be nice, or at least a few shortcuts. And before moving on to the next QOL, I do want to quickly bring up, because somebody's going to say it in chat, you can press F1 through F4 to select a character's portrait, but this is only their portrait, and then of course it brings up their hotbar. This doesn't unchain or chain anybody together. It's just a portrait select and a hotbar change. Now this next one I have seen requested a few times, and I actually think it might be a pretty good idea, especially to help out that beginner player's experience, although I still make this mistake to this day sometimes, and this deals with concentration spells. So as many of you are aware, when you cast a spell that requires concentration, your character has to concentrate on it, and then you get that passive benefit of that spell for as long as you can hold that concentration. Now, if you're like me on my first couple playthroughs, when you're not really an expert on all the spells, you might cast a concentration spell, and then right after on your next turn, you cast another spell that's also concentration without you realizing that it's another concentration spell, and then it overrides the initial concentration spell that you cast. This is of course a player error, and it can be avoided by, you know, reading every time you cast a spell. But a couple people brought up the idea of having like a little warning pop up, or maybe I was thinking when you have a concentration spell active, when you click on another spell in that text box, maybe where it says concentration in the bottom right, that blows up to a larger font, and maybe it turns red to make it easier to see on the eye, so you avoid making that mistake. Now, if Larian did do like a pop-up warning letting you know you're casting another concentration spell, I would of course want that to be optional, because experienced players don't want that pop-up on their screen. All right, a few more quick ones that I'm going to kind of rapid fire off here, and then we'll wrap this video up. The first one deals once again with the inventory. I forgot to talk about this earlier. It can be kind of hard to see in your inventory. Everything's really so small, and there's not currently a way to increase the size of this in particular. You can increase the size of dialogue and also the text above character's head, but it's kind of small right here. So an option to somehow, I don't know, like maybe a magnifying glass that zooms in and lets us see things, or perhaps if you're like in an individual party member's inventory, you have the option to like drag it across the screen and it actually makes it bigger. I don't know. Larian would be the one that would come up with a solution for that, but a lot of people have been complaining that things are just too small in this game. Now, dealing with multiplayer, a lot of people have requested the option to follow their party members. So if you're playing with a group of 2, 3, or 4, maybe you have to run to the bathroom and your party member is going to go to a different area in the Druid's Grove or something like that. You could simply right click on their character and click on follow, just like you can do in, let me throw World of Warcraft out there. I remember following my friends in World of Warcraft as they go across the world. I think that would be a nice little quality of life improvement that probably wouldn't be too hard to implement, but I'm not a game developer. And now moving on to the topic of rogues and their sneak attack. So I'd say like 80 to 90% of the time when you're playing as a rogue, I don't have one in my group right now. Astarion is currently not live. Probably shouldn't have told you guys that. You're almost always using sneak attack to get that extra added damage, and a lot of people have been requesting maybe a way, I guess they could add this to their current reaction system, even though it's not really a reaction, to toggle sneak attack on and off for passive use. So if you toggle it on, you no longer have to, you know, click on the sneak attack icon like you're casting a spell. When you do a regular weapon attack, if you meet the requirements, the game will automatically do that sneak attack. Now, this shouldn't be the case all the time because there are some situations where you might not want to use a sneak attack, so that's why I think it should be something that you can toggle on and off. This next one deals with the attack of opportunity indicator, mainly when you are in or on certain surfaces that have surface effects active, such as this fiery surface right here. If I were to move my druid away from this intellect devourer, I am going to take an attack of opportunity, but you can't really see the red indicator triangle. If I kind of pull over here a little bit, you can see the triangles here a little bit easier, but in the fiery area, you really don't see it at all. So maybe a way to make that indicator a little bit more obvious, I think would benefit probably everyone. And the last QOL that I'm going to discuss in this particular video, I might do one more, so make sure to leave your feedback below or anything maybe that you think I didn't mention that I should mention in the future, and I will take a look at it. And this one deals with your save files currently being labeled by the name of your main character. Now, if you're like me, you're probably going to have multiple characters where, one, you either forget to name your character and they're all named Tav, or two, you name your main character the same name because maybe you're just RPing that character in a different way. So if we could custom name our actual playthroughs here, our save files, I think that would go a long way. Like right now, I have 2 tabs and I'm not really sure what one is the one that I want to go on. So you have to go in it and look at it and try to figure out which one is which. It's just a kind of a pain in the butt. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to leave your feedback below or over on my Discord server. A link is below in the video description. And if you haven't checked out my Sunday lore series bringing us up to the launch of Baldur's Gate 3, make sure to check that out as well. And I'll catch you all on the next one.